Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Vasaranandana Vaddanarandana Vasaranandana Vaddanarandana Yamuna Thera Vanachari Yamuna Thera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Vasaranandana Vaddanarandana Vasaranandana Vaddanarandana Jamuna Thera Vanachari Yamuna Thera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopidana Vallabha Girivardhari Vasaranandana Vaddanarandana Vasaranandana Vaddanarandana Yamuna Thera Vanachari Yamuna Thera Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada ki jai, ISKCON Govardhana ki jai, Govardhana Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gopal Nandi. All glories to my devotees, all glories to my devotees, all glories to Shigu and Shigaranga. So we I thought it was text 34 today, but anyway, 33. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, text 12, appearance of Kumara and others, text number 33, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sahitam Grinata Putram Purajisva Pajapatin Pajapati Patastanvam Tatyaja Viditastara Tamdisho Drigahogaram Niharam Yadvidustamaha Sahitam Grinanda Puchan Puro Disva Pajapatin Pajapati Patasanvam Tadyaja Viditastara Tamdisho Jugahogodam Niharam Yadvidustamaha Sahitam Grinanta Puchan Puro Disva Pajapatin Pajapati Patastanvam Tatyaja Vitatastara Tamdisho Jugahogodam Niharam Yadvidustamaha Sahitam Vinata Pucham Pura Disva Pajapatin Tamdisho Jugahogodam Niharam Yadvidustamaha Tam Gunata Pucham Pura Disva Pajapatim Pajapatim Padadistanvam Tadyaja Vidatastada else? Words. Oh, you chanting. Saha, he, Brahma, itam, thus, Grinata, speaking, Putran, sons, Pudaha, before, Drisva, seeing, Prajapatin, all the progenitors of living entities, Prajapati Patihi, the father of them, Brahma, Tanvam, body, Tadyaja, quit, Viditaha, ashamed, Tada, at that time, Tam, that body, Dishaha, all directions, Jagrahu, accepted, Godam, blamable, Nilaham, fog, Yat, which, Vidahu, they know as, Tamaha, darkness. Translation, purport, translation, the father of all Prajapatis, Brahma, thus seeing all his Prajapati sons speaking in that way, became very much ashamed and at once gave up the body he had accepted. Later, that body appeared in all directions as a dangerous fog in darkness. Please repeat, the father of all Prajapatis, Brahma, thus seeing all his Prajapati sons speaking in that way, became very much ashamed and at once gave up the body he had accepted. Later, that body appeared in all directions as the dangerous fog in darkness. Purport, the best way to compensate for one's sinful act is to give up one's body at once. And Brahma, the leader of the living entities, showed this by his personal example. Brahma has a fabulous duration of life, but he was obliged to give up his body due to his grievous sin, even though he had merely contemplated it in his mind without having actually done it. This is a lesson for the living entities, showing how sinful an act it is to indulge in unrestricted sex life. Even to think of abominable sex life is sinful, and to compensate for such acts, one has to give up his body. In other words, one's duration of life, blessings, opulence, etc., are decreased by sinful acts, and the most dangerous type of sinful act is unrestricted sex. Ignorance is the cause of all sinful life, or sinful life is the cause of gross ignorance. The feature of ignorance is darkness or fog. Darkness or fog still covers the whole universe, and the sun is the only counteracting principle. One who takes shelter of the Lord, the perpetual light, has no fear of being annihilated in the darkness of fog or ignorance. Sorry? Well, that's what I thought, but it was that verse with today's date up there. I mean, I've got 34 prepared. I can do 34 because yeah, well, I'll go on to 34 then as well, so we'll cover both. Makes it easy for me. Text 34. Kadachidya yata shastru veda asams chato mukat katam shakshyam yaham lokan samavetam yata pura. Translation, once upon a time when Brahma was thinking of how to create the worlds, as in the past millennium, the four Vedas, which contain all varieties of knowledge, became manifested from his four mouths. Purport, as a fire can consume anything and everything without being contaminated. So, by the grace of the Lord, the fire of Brahma's greatness consumed his desire for the sinful act of sex with his daughter. The Vedas are the source of all knowledge, and they were first revealed to Brahma by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, while Brahma was thinking of recreating the material world. Brahma is powerful by dint of his devotional service unto the Lord, and the Lord is always ready to forgive his devotee if by chance he falls down from the noble path of devotional service. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.42 confirms this as follows. Swapada malam bhajata priyasya tvaikva banya babasya hari parasyaha vikama yach chot patatam katam chid dunotu savam hridi sanavista. Any person who is engaged 100% in the transcendental loving service of the Lord at his lotus feet is very dear to the personality of Godhead Hari. And the Lord, being situated in the heart of the devotee, excuses all kinds of sins committed by chance. It was never expected that a great personality like Brahma would ever think of sex indulgence with his daughter. The example shown by Brahma only suggests that the power of material nature is so strong that it can act upon everyone, even Brahma. Brahma was saved by the mercy of the Lord with a little punishment, but by the grace of the Lord he did not lose his prestige as the great Brahma. So, we're hearing the process of creation by Lord Brahma, and this section, this particular verse, we're hearing how with his four heads the four Vedas are manifesting. So the four Vedas, of course, Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda and Yajur Veda. There are other corollary past the Vedas, Puranas, etc., but these are the four primary Vedas. When we speak about the four Vedas, these are the specific four. So one who is expert in understanding one Veda can be known as the Ek Veda, or two Ek Vedi, or two Do Vedi, or Tri Vedi, or Chaturvedi. So whether you know 1, 2, 3 or 4. Years ago, working in a hospital in Perth, and I was in the lift, and there was one doctor, Indian doctor, and I looked at his name tag, and his name was Dr. Trivedi. And I said, "Oh, doctor, you've got a very auspicious name." And he said, "Oh, why is that?" So it's Trivedi. So you know what Trivedi is? It's just my name. And that's all he knew. So for a couple of seconds I enlightened him what Trivedi meant. So he was quite impressed that a Western orderly was telling the doctor what his name meant. But anyway. So, of course, the conclusion of the Vedas is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, one could read all four Vedas if they had a life long enough and still not properly understand what the conclusion of the Vedas is. So Krishna is there, but he's hidden. The Vedas primarily concern, the three modes of material nature and living in this world according to, Vedic conclusions. So as we know, even after finishing this great work, Srila Vasudeva was still unsatisfied, and his guru Narada Muni explained that you haven't glorified Krishna directly. Conditioned souls, particularly in the Kali Yuga, they will take advantage of what you have given and still trying to, they won't get purified. They'll just, they might be following the Vedic injunctions, but their goal won't be Krishna. So therefore, on this inspiration, he presented Srimad Bhagavatam, which directly, like Sukadev Goswami, is Amala Purana, the pure Purana, free from Kaitavadama, cheating religion. So it directly glorifies Krishna and his pastimes. So, of course, the Vedas, like what we hear, they're emanating from the mouth of Lord Brahma. So the Vedas aren't just books written down at a certain point in history. The Vedas is eternal sound vibration. And they were, at the beginning of every creation, they're introduced into the universe for the benefit of the conditioned souls. So we shouldn't think that they're simply just some books. So sometimes you get, the Bible, the Quran, or the, Bhagavad Gita. But, these are just written by ordinary people. Sometimes there's claim like that. But at least as far as the Vedas go, it's eternal sound vibration. It's always there, and it covers a whole range of knowledge, material and spiritual, but specifically the Srimad Bhagavatam focuses just on the spiritual, simply Krishna, his pastimes with his devotees. So in this section of Bhagavatam, verses about 28 to 48, we're hearing the very beginning of the universe. So if you aren't, as we know, the scientists, they present, in the beginning was the Big Bang Theory. There are other theories, but that's the predominant one at the moment. And if you listen to scientists, they're absolutely convinced this is how it came about. They say, we may not have all the answers, but slowly through more and more research, it's coming. But there was one scientist, just can't think of his name, but he put forward a guide to all the prominent theories, scientific theories, and he analysed them according to their standard, to how they're standing, whether they're just beginning, or they're prominent, or they're fading, or they're in crisis. So he places Big Bang Theory as a theory in crisis, because basically it hasn't lived up to its promise that it's going to answer all the questions. And the biggest stumbling block is this dark energy or dark matter. They accept that it fills up about 85-90% of the universe, but they got no idea what it is, where it's come from, what its purpose is, etc. Speaking to Banu Swami about this, he says he would say this is Prakriti, this is Krishna's material energy. But the scientists don't have access to that sort of information, or they don't want to accept it. They just want to, through their different experiments, the modern scientific system of trying to analyse and experimentation, theory, experimentation, observation like this. So, of course, it's not that we're against science. Every day we're using the result of science, but what, like Rinananda Maharaj specifically, he presents, what we're against is scientism, which basically is the idea that material science will answer all of our questions, which is just not going to happen. We live in a bidimensional universe, meaning that there's both matter and spirit. And just ourselves, where our body is material, but our soul is spiritual. Or we as the soul is spiritual. So it's bidimensional. So to take out the spiritual aspect is missing a whole, portion of the creation. But the scientists generally, just due to their very restrictive system that they've established, they're sort of stuck in that material sphere. But hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam, we can see the creation of the universe is far more mystical and esoteric than simply, atoms and molecules expanding and exploding and etc., etc. And basically there's a person behind it. It's not an impersonal idea or understanding. There's a person behind every aspect. So ultimately from Krishna and then Lord Brahma and then the Prajapatis, etc., there's every aspect and every part of the universe that expands. There's a personality behind that. So if we take away that personality, we've simply got a very materialistic, impersonal idea, which, as we said, the scientists are understanding is just not answering so many questions. Of course, as I said, many scientists are convinced this is the actual reality, but the more honest scientists will tell us that the more we study the universe, the more we realise how little we understand it. So it's interesting to hear from some of the scientists themselves. So Lord Brahma, so it's this particular past I'm unfolding somehow or other. He was attracted to his daughter, and as I mentioned in a previous class, also mentioned later on, I think the 20th chapter in the third canto that I was wondering about that. I'll start yelling. That Lord Brahma, he noticed that his daughter, Vark, she had taken the body of a female deer. And Lord Brahma, somehow or other, he was attracted sexually to her. He took the body of a male deer and approached her for union. But his Prajapati sons seen what's going on, and they were shocked and said, how can this be going on? Lord Brahma is such, the first living being in the universe, and, such a great personality. We are his sons. How is this going on? So that was very bewildering to them. And so we heard in previous verse that they thought all they can do is pray to Krishna. And so Prabhupada mentions these different places that if you don't understand what's going on and how, in a particular situation you don't know what to do, all you can do is just pray to Krishna. And so this is what his sons did. And ultimately Lord Brahma, he came to his senses and, completely ashamed that somehow or other he come overwhelmed. So the lesson we can learn from this, that every living entity has the potential to come under illusion. We have the four defects of the conditioned soul that liable to commit mistakes, that the senses become illusioned, that there's a cheating propensity, and the one other is imperfect senses. Yeah, so, Lord Brahma, being such a great personality, somehow or other, he's also come under the sway of this. So whether it was, due to him coming under illusion, or somehow or other Krishna's made that arrangement, but Srila Prabhupada comments that, the thing that we can learn from this is that everybody is liable to come under the influence of the material energy. And somehow or other, Lord Brahma has also fallen into this situation. And, we can learn that it's very difficult to live in this material world without making mistakes. It's that saying, to err is human, to make mistakes is human. So the mind can be the best friend or can be the worst enemy. And so basically most of the problems we have in this world is due to the influence of the mind. If the intelligence is strong, then the mind comes under control. But if the intelligence is weak, then the mind overrides the intelligence. And we get ourselves into so many situations. So we know in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna asked Krishna that what is that sometimes we engage in sinful acts as if by force. What is that, Krishna? And so Krishna, as we know, says it's lust, the all-devouring enemy of man. So in our original state in the spiritual world, we have that Krishna Prem, that pure love of Krishna within the heart. But coming down to the material world, that Krishna Prem comes in contact with the mode of passion, transformed into lust. So that becomes the greatest enemy in this human form of life. And so Lord Brahma, they start giving advice, but sometimes even though we're getting good advice, we don't always like to listen. And we hear this story about people who get scammed online. Somehow or other they get a message or get somebody who comes in contact with them, and that sometimes you get that romance scam that somebody pledges love for like say a male pledges love for the woman, and there was like online romance going on, and the lady, she's a bit lonely and she thinks, oh, this man really loves me, not realising it's some guy in Africa or somewhere. And all the friends are telling her that there's just a scam, he's going to start asking for money, and no, he really loves me, and yeah, he's asking for $5,000 just to helping out a little bit, and then he's going to come over, and no, it's a scam. And anyway, she sends the money and then never hears from him again. So even if we're getting good advice and we don't want to listen due to our mind and our senses just becoming overwhelmed, that emotional attachment or whatever it may be, or it may be just due to our greed that we're thinking that due to this particular situation we're going to get a lot of money, and in the end all that money is gone. Just listening to Krishna Balaram Prabhu, he just did a 1-year banking course about all the cyber crime that's gone on, and people losing $500,000, $1 million just through these different scams. And sometimes these people have been told by well-wishers that it's just a scam, but they don't want to listen. So this is going on. So the sons of Brahma, they're trying to give good advice to Lord Brahma, but initially he didn't want to listen, just due to be apparently overcome by this influence of lust. But once they offered their prayers to Krishna, and then Lord Brahma, he was able to rectify. As mentioned, that he gave up his body. The acharyas mention it's not so much his specific body, but his mentality he gave up. And in the previous, we've heard that body just become mist or fog. And we all know, when I go to work early in the morning, sometimes very heavy fog along the road. Can only drive very slowly because you just don't know what's ahead. So that fog or mist can be very dangerous. So that fog or mist can also be understood to be the darkness of ignorance as well. So coming under influence of the mode of ignorance in this material world is like the darkness of fog or mist. So that particular verse that was in the purport, 11.5.42, just Prabhupada mentions in the purport that due to the powerful influence of material nature, even a sincere devotee may be temporarily overwhelmed by illusion and deviate from the rigid path of pure devotional service. However, a surrendered devotee has no need to perform prayaschitta or atonement for an accidental fall down into sinful activity. So we know in the beginning of the 6th canto, Sukadeva Goswami speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. And so Sukadeva Goswami, he was testing Maharaj Parikshit, and he said that if we perform some impious sinful activity, we can perform some prayaschitta, and that'll rectify the situation. So Maharaj Parikshit, of course, very intelligent, and he expressed a doubt that, well, this prayaschitta, he compared it to the hati snan, the elephant taking bath. You know, we know Prabhupada gives the example, the elephant takes bath, comes out and throws dirt on its skin again. And so Maharaj Parikshit, it seems like that even though someone might perform some prayaschitta, they rectify themselves, but again, they're engaging the same activity. And Sukadeva Goswami said, yes, that is correct. So more important than prayaschitta or atonement is to engage in pure devotional service. So Prabhupada continues that since devotional service is itself the most purifying process, a sincere devotee who has accidentally stumbled on the path should immediately resume his pure devotional service at the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus the Lord will protect him. So we had the example of the Jamil, that even though he was engaged in so much sinful activity, somehow or other, by providence, he named his son Narayan. So it's understood by chanting the name Narayan, he'd become free from that sin. So whilst that didn't liberate him back to Godhead, but it saved him from the Yamadutas coming to take him, and protected by the Vishnudutas. And at that time, Narayan, he gave up his worldly life and went to the Himalayas, and that way perfected his life. But simply, even unknowingly chanting the name of Narayan, Ajamil was protected from his sinful activities. So the devotees of the Lord are very dear to the Lord, although the beloved child may accidentally commit an abominable activity. The loving Father forgives the child, taking into consideration the actual good intentions of the child. So we shouldn't think that Krishna is vindictive or envious or hateful. He has nothing but love for his parts and parcels. But persons in this world sometimes are very envious, and they talk about, there's so much suffering in the world. You're talking about a loving God. How can this go on? But these people, they like to say that there is no God, but when something happens, they blame God for it. So it's a bit of hypocrisy there sometimes. But it's if somebody commits a crime, gets caught by the police, comes before the judge, gets put into jail, whose fault actually is it? Is it the police's fault? Is it the court's fault? Is it the jail's fault? Is it God's fault? Or is it the individual who committed the crime to start with? Of course, logic would tell us it's the person who committed the crime. We can't be blaming others for our own activities. So Prabhupada mentions that the loving Father forgives the child, taking into consideration the actual good intentions of the child. So that's really, even if the actions seem to be improper or misplaced, but it is the intention that Krishna looks at. So you can use the example that, like the Putana came to kill Krishna just after he was born. Sitting on the lap, and Putana came to try to kill Krishna. So, but what did Krishna see? While it's bad intention, it was a good action. because she came in the mood of the mother, offering her breast milk to Krishna, even though it was poison. Still, Krishna only saw that. He didn't see the bad intention that she's trying to kill me. So Putana, she was achieved the post in the spiritual world, like a mother or a nurse like that. So in that way, Krishna just saw the action. Another example, if the good intention but bad action. So Putana was bad intention, good action, but in the example, if there's a good intention or a bad action, use the example, Advaitacharya's wife, Sita, she was, Lord Caitanya came to see them, and in ecstasy, she was offering Lord Caitanya, she thought she was offering bananas to him, but in her ecstasy, she was actually peeling bananas and offering him the skin and throwing the bananas away. So it's a good intention but bad action. But Lord Caitanya was eating those banana skins and commenting how delicious they were because they were offered with love. But of the situation, if the bad intention and bad action, so what's the situation there? So like Jagai and Madai, for instance, their intention and action were bad, attacking Lord Nityananda. But when Lord Caitanya appeared, was about to kill them with a Sudarshan, but because they surrendered to Lord Caitanya's, prayed for forgiveness, Lord Caitanya forgave them. So the point is that, Krishna, he just sees the intention. Even if it's an improper or mistaken action, he sees the intention that's there. That's what's important. And if there's going to be love for Krishna, some devotion for Krishna, the intention will always be bad. Even if the intelligence is misplaced, the intention will always be good. And that's what Krishna's going to see. So why we perform these sinful activities to start with, sometimes it's due to their sinful desire seed within the heart. As we have like the three, Nectar Devotion, Rupa Goswami explains the three primary causes of suffering in this material world. One is avidya, or ignorance, and the second is the papam bij, the sinful desire seed within the heart, and the third is the kutam, or proclivity to sin. Sometimes a person is born with that proclivity within the heart. So the ignorance, the desire to sin, the sin itself, of the three, basically it's all born from ignorance, due to not knowing what to do or what not to do. And like driving a car on the road, if you're not aware of the road laws, sooner or later you're going to come to grief. So if you're going to be on the road, it's your duty to understand what the road rules are. In the same way, the human form of life, like the classic saying, ignorance of the law is no excuse. In this human form of life, it is our duty to understand what is proper action to perform so that we don't come to grief, harm ourselves or harm others as a result. So there is a difference between sinful activity and aparad. So sinful activity can be easily destroyed by Harinam, by performing bhakti yoga. It's like be described as a material activity that's improper, and there's a sinful reaction, but this can be destroyed through bhakti yoga. But aparad is more, can be described as a more like devotional sin. In other words, we're offending the Vaishnavas, or offending the holy name, or deity aparad, or there's some sort of sinful activity related to offending, in a devotional, in the devotional realm. So. And sometimes it's compared to, like, particularly Vaishnava aparad or sadhu ninda as the mad elephant offence. Like the mad elephant comes into the garden and just decimates the whole garden. So, or in other words, all the creepers growing in the garden. So that also decimate our creeper of devotion within the heart. And this apparatus, the result of this apparatus is much harder to get rid of. I think in Harinam Chintamani, I believe it's mentioned that even up to the stage of bhava, the result of apparat can be there sometimes, and use the example of who was that sage attracted to the deer? Bharat, sorry, I couldn't. Bharat Maharaj. Yeah, so Bharat Maharaj. So it said that he was on the stage of bhava, but he got attracted to that young deer, got distracted from his sadhana, and the acharyas mentioned that this was due to some apparat from previous life. Somehow or other, he was distracted from his sadhana. So even in the stage of bhava, it can be there. So, you know, and it's not necessarily from this life, it can be from previous lives. So one class, Banu Swami, he was speaking from one literature, I'm not sure what it was, but he gave a list of the causes of anarthas in the heart. It can be caused by previous sinful activities from previous life, perhaps from improper sadhana, you know, like chanting inattentively, or also, you know, we have, I think, is it the 9th or 10th offence that maintaining material activities, even though we understand, you know, the spiritual guidelines about how to avoid it, but still we're maintaining those sinful activities. So some attachment is there. And offences to Vaishnavas, etc., offences to the holy name. And it can just be weakness of heart, just due to laziness or weakness of heart, where performing improper activities, material desires in general. So to become free from these anarthas and material desires, we can pray to Krishna, like the sons of Brahma. They prayed to Krishna to alleviate Lord Brahma from this sinful desire. And but simply by praying to Krishna, we also have to act. There has to be some act, also some effort on our part to purify ourselves. And when Krishna sees, even if we're again and again falling down to one sinful activity or another, but if we're trying to purify ourselves, Krishna sees our intention, and he's going to reciprocate according to how, you know, according to the level of our effort. These are some of the points from this verse. But ultimately we see that that Lord Brahma, he was able to cast off that mentality due to the mercy of Krishna. Krishna was able to purify himself, and in that way he was able to continue on with his act of creation. The next few verses we're hearing that one after another different aspects of the creation were being manifested by the arrangement of Lord Brahma, based on empowered by the mercy of Krishna. So we'll end there. Thank you very much. If there's any questions or comments at all. I don't know how much you heard with that rain, but
Got a question?
Yes, yes.
Anyone else got a question? So, in the beginning of Bhagavatam, I'll just tell you the verse here.
Mm.
In chapter, what is it? Anyway, I can tell you the verse later, but I think it's the first canto. Thereafter, in the 17th incarnation of Godhead, Sri Vyasadeva appeared in the womb of Satyavati through Parashara Muni, and he divided the one Veda into several branches and sub-branches, seeing that the people in general were less intelligent. And the purport Prabhupada says, Originally the Veda is one, but Srila Vyasadeva divided the original Veda into the 4.
Mm.
So I just wonder if you could comment on this in light of this verse.
Yeah. So, today's verse, that the 4 Vedas which contain all varieties of knowledge become manifested from his mouths. So, I mean, as you say, we generally understand Srila Vyasadeva divided that one Veda into 4, but as I would present that, you know, the 4 Vedas are eternally existing and they've been manifested by the mouth of Brahma based on this verse, but whether Srila Vyasadeva just received it as one and divided it to 4, I mean, I'm not sure. You have a comment? Yeah. 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 Yeah, so I'm not sure how we would understand that Srila Vyasadeva divided into 4, but we're hearing here that the 4 is coming from Lord Brahma himself. I'm sure there's some understanding there, but yeah, I'm not sure. Very sorry. Anything else? So, Mike?
I heard it.
Also, right in the beginning of the Lord Brahma, is that demon, was his name Murari? Was it? Stole the Vedas,
Yeah.
and it's Vedas in plural, and it's like one of these. I go by pictures, and you see the 4 Vedas being rescued by the Swan incarnation. So at that point in time, they were the Vedas, and they were split right in the beginning. So some point in time, as you say, Lord Vyasadeva, he might have received it as one, but
yeah. So Vaishnavi, you had a question?
Thank you for the class. You're mentioning that we are giving good advice, but we don't want to take it. So the English saying that a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So what do we do if we know something's good for us and we hear it, but somehow we cover it over? So in our process, what do we need to do? I remember listening to Manashiksha sequence of classes, and Romapad Swami and Mahatma Prabhu are saying that instead of thinking our way into an action, we need to act our way into correct thinking. So is that one way?
Well, yeah, I guess basically it comes down to, we need to make our intelligence strong. By daily sadhana, we're strengthening our intelligence. But if our intelligence become weak, then the mind takes over, and the mind has many brothers, if you like, or expansions like lust, greed, anger, envy, etc. They're the enemies of the mind. So in the end, we have free will. We have to decide who we're going to listen to, but due to perhaps the overpowering influence of lust or envy or greed, we don't want to listen to good advice. So we're going to have to suffer as a result. But like the mercy of Lord Brahma, or like Lord Brahma, by the mercy of Krishna, through the agency of his sons, he was sort of excused, protected and excused for his sins. So ultimately, Krishna is within the heart of every living being, and if there's, a devotion, sincerity there, Krishna is going to rectify. But sometimes we have to learn the lesson. have to learn, the hard way if we choose not to hear. So it really comes down to free will. We need to decide what we want. But due to the influence of these, inauspicious sort of elements, sometimes we get taken away, off the path. So it does happen. And, even, great personalities in Bhagavatam we hear, they get swayed. I gave the example last week of Lord Shiva wanted to see this form of Mohini Morty, and he become overwhelmed with lust by seeing that form and chasing after her, all over the place. Who could think that Lord Shiva would be overwhelmed in that particular way? But we can sort of learn the lesson. These great, afterwards, after that influence left Mohini Morty, Lord Shiva regained his same, normal grave state. So, it's not that he lost his position, completely and, was relegated to a lower position or whatever. He's Lord Shiva. But we can learn the example and the, the lessons from these different examples, that we may not be tested in the same way, but at least we can learn the lesson of these other great souls who are overcome by these negative aspects, but was able to ultimately be, regain their original position. Yeah. So, yes, sir.
And he says that all the Vedas are ultimately emanations from the breathing of the Supreme Personality of God. He quotes the four Vedas there.
Yeah.
And the verse says the four Vedas.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so I think at the beginning of every creation, they're introduced into the universe by Krishna and then manifested through the mouth of Brahma. So that's the standard process of the four Vedas, as I understand. All right, thank you very much. Prabhupada ki jai.
Gurung Sri Gurung Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajeevam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Dalita Sri Visakhantam Cha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Devi Sri Varsabhanavi Devi Rahitaya Pipadhani Krishna Samanda Vijnanam Dayine Prabhavi Namaham Madhurya Ujjana Pramadhya Sri Rupanuga Bhakti Dham Sri Gauna Karnataka Vidya Ajnamastute Namaste Gauravani Sri Murte Dinatarini Rupananda Virudhapa Siddhanta Dhanta Harini Namo Gaura Krishnaya Sakshat Vairagamurte Vittalam Narasham Bodhe Sadham Bhojaya Te Namaha Nama Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namini Gaura Shakti Sarvaya Rupananda Marayati Gaurayavi Bhava Bhumestam Nityasya भक्त्यावतारं भक्त्याख्यं भक्तशक्तिविपतम् हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपीश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमस्तुते जयतां सुरतौ पङ्गां मम मन्दर्मते गति मत्सर्वस्य पदां भोजो राधामदन Kancana